So before we get into the lecture of today, we kind of started off, it was kind of a little bit crazy because everybody was doing something a little bit different. So I wanted to just sit down and kind of individually, or at least one-on-one it could seem, go through what we kind of did at the beginning. We took a look at the packet and decided if everybody had done everything. So taking your Unit 4 packet, okay, going through and making sure each piece of paper is kind of done. So you had the atomic force structure notes. That was a long time ago, but make sure, and then you did your worksheet. We had a bell work. So we're kind of just flipping through, and I just kind of had everybody make sure that they knew if they had done everything. And then we went especially wanted to make sure, because this is where it started, with me not being able to see you because it started over Thanksgiving. So I want you right now to flip through and see if you did History of the Atoms Notes Part 1. Make sure that that is filled in. Okay, this is the Monday of the Thanksgiving week. If you need to go back and look at it, I believe it is let me check for you. This is week 14. So if you don't have this in, go into week 14. Then you should also have History of the Atoms Notes Part 2 filled in, also in week 14. Then there is a bell work that you should have filled in. Please go through and make sure that you have worksheet or the notes number 3 filled in. Perfect. That's in week 15. And then make sure worksheet number 2 if you want to work on that. Bell work number 3 if you want to work on that. Then you need History of the Atoms Notes Part 4. This is also in the week of week 15. And then the number one thing that people were missing was from the live class in week 15 was the notes number 5. History of the Atoms Notes Part 5. So you want to make sure you have that filled in as well. Once you have those filled in, and I gave some people some time to catch up and watch some of the lectures. Once you have those all filled in, then you can move forward and do what we were doing yesterday when you needed Notes Part 5 done and things like that. So what we started with today were a few things. And then I'm going to give you a moment to pause and finish this, and then I will drop you into the recording of when we went over this stuff. So the first thing you can see is up on the screen. On the screen, we have the History of the Atoms quick study. And when you're doing the quick study here, you can use your notes, but this is just a condensed version of all the scientists that we think are very important. So if you want to go through and make sure that you can do all these. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you to pause the program, and I'm going to ask you to do this. The other thing that we did was we spent a little bit of time working on worksheet number 3. I'm not sure where that guy is in here. If you wanted to do that, there's atomic structure worksheet number 3. And then last but not least, it was from the very beginning. So there's another atomic structure worksheet number 3. If you want to practice this will be on your test on Friday. And then in the packet, we skipped this a long time ago. Elements, names, and symbols to know. So eventually we're going to give you a quiz at some point in time over the elements, names, and symbols, but we're going to do it in class in paper and pencil because it would be way too easy if you had a periodic table and could just be like, oh yeah, see, it's carbon. But we want you just to fill this in because there's a lot of misconceptions where people are like, well, I don't know what K is. There's no, element with K. And some people get confused, like they know that C is calcium, but C is actually carbon. Okay, so what I want you to do is sit down with your periodic table, and I would like for you to fill in and make sure you know the name for each of these elemental symbols. So with your periodic table, fill this in and pause it. And I want you to do this quick study and try to tell me what each scientist did and the model that they had. And then this is your quantum mechanics model. And so I'm going to give a little break here. And then what you will see is us back in class, and you will see us going through the answers to this and making sure that you feel good. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we are going to review. Thursday, they have a lab in class. And then Friday, we have our test for this unit. okay, which would be everything in this packet. So you want to make sure you have all the worksheets filled in. If you have any questions or you don't know where to find a lecture, write me an email with the heading of the lecture and I can point you in the right direction, okay? So we'll get there. It's all a little bit confusing, but we'll make it happen. Let me know if you have any questions, okay? Thank you, guys. All right, so I think we might as well just get going on this. I see a lot of people that have it done, so I want to make sure that everybody's swell with this. Tomorrow, we're going to actually tell you what's exactly on the test for Friday, and then we will give you time to do the review sheet. So I think kind of organizing all of the scientists in one spot is going to help you be able to study tomorrow when you do your review sheet. So we had a whole bunch of scientists in the history of the atom, and we kind of narrowed them down to these 5. So hopefully you understand. And I had hidden the key to this. I did put this key in the Tuesday folder. If I go too fast and you want to take a look at it, it is there now. Okay. So Democritus, he only had the idea that atoms exist. Okay. Aristotle thought he was wrong. And so therefore it set us back about 2,000 years. But if you see the scientist Democritus, you are accrediting him with the idea of the first atom. Okay. Did he have a model? No, he did not. He had nothing. Okay. He had no proof. Therefore, he had no model and nobody believed him. And so we went a long time under the wrong assumption that everything was made of like earth and fire, wind, and water. Then you had 2 other scientists that are not up here. You had Lavoisier and Proust. Lavoisier was working with the law of conservation of mass, and Proust was working with what's called the law of definite proportions. Excuse me. And with those, we started to see that maybe Democritus was right and that maybe atoms exist. So Dalton came along and he wrote this atomic theory. And his atomic theory had 4 parts. Atoms are indivisible and indestructible. Atoms of the same element are the same. Atoms of different elements are different. And every compound is made of a law of definite proportion. So if you just know he had a theory and he was the first person to come out and say atoms actually exist, people asked him what the atom must look like, and he said it was just a marble with no parts. Okay, so then history continued along. Thomson found a part of this marble, though. It is not a no-part marble. Thomson found himself the electron. He used the cathode ray tube, and he found the negative portion, which was an electron. And being intelligent, he said if there's a negative part, there also has to be a positive part, okay, in order for it to be all neutral. And so he must have been hungry because he had the plum pudding model where he had positive pudding with negative little electrons sprinkled inside of it. Then we had Rutherford come along. He is the only one that I would absolutely know his experiment because it is a classic foundation experiment that we have in chemistry here. He did the gold foil experiment. And what he did was he basically fired a bunch of bullets at this pudding. And remarkably, he hit something. They didn't think they were going to hit anything, but they did. And what Rutherford found was the nucleus. He said that it is small, massive, and dense, and positively charged. And so he said, I don't know a lot of things, but what I do know is that most of the atom is empty space. You have a teeny, teeny, tiny nucleus, and then very far away from that are the electrons. That's all he knew for his model. Then Bohr came along, and what Bohr thought was about the electrons, that they orbit like planets around the sun, okay? And that you have low energy closest to the nucleus and higher energy as you go further from the nucleus. So that is the history of the atom that leads us up into what we know now, which is quantum mechanics. And then quantum mechanics has 4 scientists we think you should know. That would be de Broglie. De Broglie was the first person to say that electrons can be waves and particles at the same time. So we do operate under that theory. And then Schrodinger was in here. Oh, and we also had Chadwick on the top half. Chadwick found the neutrons, but we don't need him. Schrodinger basically tried to develop the mathematical calculation to figure out where the electrons are and said, I don't know, okay, which led to Heisenberg. You cannot know two things. You cannot know where an electron is or where it is going at the same time. Once you know where it is, it's gone and you don't know where it went. If you kind of know where it went, you had no idea where it started from. Okay, and then alpha were the last two that we talked about last Wednesday when you're filling your orbital charts. So right now, all of this stuff has to do with orbitals. Okay, alpha said you fill the lowest energy level first, closest to the nucleus. And Hund said that electrons are in orbitals one at a time. They're negative, so you put each slash in there one at a time before you go back and double up. Okay, so that is the history of the atom that we've been doing for about 2 weeks, all on one piece of paper of what I consider is extremely important. So if you can get this kind of comprehended and under your belt, you should be good. What I want to do is we have about 10 more minutes. I do have a few very simple lecture questions for some easy 6 points today. So go ahead and open your Chromebook. Go into the bottom folder, week 16, into the Tuesday folder. And I want you to answer the 3 lecture questions. Then, if you have not finished all of the lectures, I want you to take this time to pick up where you were, finish the lectures. You also can finish the elements worksheet here. You can also, there's an atomic structure worksheet number 3 that if you want to get some practice before the quiz or before the test on Friday as well. So there's lots of stuff. Lecture questions. Make sure you're finishing this. Finish your element names. And if you would like atomic structure worksheet number 3, I'm going to walk around, see how we're doing, check in with my people at home. Hopefully we're feeling good.